So welcome back, everyone, for our last presentation in here. And I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Betty Giannulli. I hope I said it correctly. And I'm very pleased I can say Betty, which is easier to say than your Greek name. Yes. She is a theatre pedagogue, a sociologist with a PhD in theatre and education. She teaches at the Department of Early Childhood Education of the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. Her research focuses on the use of theatre as a learning medium and as social intervention. In this context, she delivers teacher training seminars and theatre workshops for young people that lead to theatre performances, as well as seminars on women's empowerment. She has participated in several European projects and is a member of the academic and editorial board of the journal Education and Theatre. Thank you.
Another. Okay. Thank you very much. I feel privileged to be part of this group of people. It's a community that is very brilliant, just for these days, of course, part. I hope later I let you know better. It's brilliant and very warm, and I'm very happy that I met all of you. A student asked me yesterday if I do something practical, and I said, no, I will talk. I will talk about praxis today. Before that, I want to say that today there is a growing international debate and concern to the recognition of arts in education. UNESCO, in Arts and Education conferences, together with the World Alliance for Arts Education, has consistently advocated for the arts as an essential dimension of quality education. As stated in the Seoul Agenda, a document from the UNESCO Arts Conference, the arts contribute to social, emotional, and ethical learning. They foster dialogue, cooperation, empathy, and intercultural understanding, which enabling learners to engage critically with the complex challenges of contemporary society. It is within this broader educational vision that I would like to position the work I'm presenting today. Weaving stories together, from personal narratives to collective drama is a title. In this presentation, I would like to share a process developed within a university course in this Department of Pre-Primary Education about theatre in education. Stories are central to this process, but my focus is not storytelling as an isolated technique. Rather, I will discuss how personal narratives become one of the threads through which a group gradually creates a collective dramatic performance. We all carry stories. Stories about who we are, stories about where we come from, stories about what we have experienced, what we have lost, what we hope for, and what we are still trying to understand. But stories are never only personal. They are also cultural, social, they are educational. They are shaped by the worlds we live in and by the worlds that have shaped us. The novelist Chimamanda Adichie is Nigerian. In her TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story, reminds us of something very important. When we hear only one story about a person, a group, or a country, we risk misunderstanding them. We risk reducing them to something simple, fixed, or stereotypical. And I believe this analysis can be applied in the educational context, especially when we work with students who are training to become educators. A future educator will meet many stories in the classroom. Stories of children, families, languages, silences, fears, strengths, and possibilities. So it's essential to learn how to listen without reducing the other to a single story. It is the complexity that matters, the interconnection of the stories. Why this matter in education? In the course I will discuss today, we use stories and theater as part of a learning journey, not only as techniques, but as a space where stories can be opened, shared, questioned, and transformed. A process where we can feel safe enough to speak, safe enough to move, safe enough to listen, safe enough to create in the end. A process that invites us to go further, to express ourselves artistically, to meet the stories of others, and to discover what connects us. Why is this important? Because very often we believe that the difficulties we face are only personal, only individual, only ours. We may even believe that we are entirely responsible for them. But when stories are shared, something begins to change. We start to see that what we experience personally is often connected to wider social, cultural, and educational conditions. We begin to recognize not only our differences, but also the similarities, tensions, and questions that we share. Stories help us see and feel these connections. It helps us communicate with difference, not only with differences that seem far away, but also with the differences we meet every day in our own environments, in our own classrooms, in our own communities, even in communities that may appear small, familiar, or homogeneous. There are many voices, many experiences, many stories. Theater and education. For me, the key theater and education, pedagogical and social interventions is the course I will talk today about. For me, the key word here is social intervention, not in the sense of imposing meaning or directing participants towards predetermined messages, but in the sense of creating a space where participants can explore, question, communicate, and engage in meaning-making around the social concerns they encounter as human beings and as future educators. This approach draws on traditions of theater and education, participatory theater and applied theater, it's a term that we use the last 15 years, which encompass a wide range of participatory, socially engaged, and often politically informed theatrical practices. These traditions remind us of theater's roots in community and of its potential to function also as an educational medium and as a form of social engagement. In this sense, theater is never merely representation. Following Brecht, we may understand theater as a way of examining social reality, questioning what appears natural or taken for granted, and imagining how things might be otherwise. Theater allows experience to be viewed from a distance, revisited, reshaped, and shared with others. Like all the arts, theater offers rich opportunities for expression, creativity, and meaning-making. What makes distinctive here is the capacity to invite us into role. By stepping into another person's perspective, we are encouraged to experience situations, to imagine things, relationships, dilemmas from within. In this way, theater does not simply talk about empathy, it allows us to rehearse empathy. We begin to imagine what it means to stand in someone else's space, place, in someone else's shoes, we say, to see through different eyes, to question our own assumptions, and imagine different ways of being in the world. Interesting story, theater is an act of storytelling. Interestingly, a similar discussion exists within the storytelling community. Wilson explored the close relationship between storytelling and theater. From a Brechtian perspective, theater may be understood as an act of storytelling that invites audiences to question rather than simply consume the experience. In a time where education is often reduced to the measurement of skills and the reproduction of dominant norms, applied theater offers a different kind of space. Education then becomes more than the transmission of knowledge. It becomes a space where students can reconnect with themselves, with others, and with the world. This brings us to education as a human and political, social and political act. And the political is a term I use in ancient Greek, meaning here about active citizens in the world that cares about the others. In our pedagogical approach, I believe that the arts have a particular capacity to create such spaces, as I said earlier. I can speak especially from the fields of music and dance sometimes, from the work of colleagues with whom we cooperate closely in the university, such as Olympia, and other colleagues in several contexts. With our artistic languages, maybe the artistic languages differ. We share but we share many common concerns: participation, group, embodied learning, listening, identity, and the creation of meaning through artistic experience. In our pedagogical approach, developed within theater and education, storytelling becomes the starting point for a process of collective artistic creation, critical reflection, and social awareness. Rather than focusing on drama techniques themselves, I would like to explore how the design of the process enables students' voices to emerge, meet, and be transformed through theater. The central question: how can students' personal narratives be transformed through theater techniques into collective dramatic material that cultivates expression, communication, collaboration, empathy, and social awareness? How we weave the process. The final theatrical composition develops gradually through a structured process. This is why I use the metaphor of weaving. A single strand remains a strand, but when many strands meet, when they cross, resist, support, and respond to another, a fabric begins to appear. The process unfolds through a series of interconnected stages. We see them here: building the group, cultivating active listening and communication, introducing stimuli that invite personal material, recognizing shared themes, transforming stories into body and image, improvising, testing, selecting, composing, performing, and reflecting. In the same way, the performance is woven from personal memories, objects, gestures, voices, etc. Theoretical perspectives are present throughout this process, but they are not separated from practice. Dewey helps us understand learning as experiential and reflective. Students do not simply talk about stories. They live, shape, and reconsider them through action. Vygotsky reminds us that learning is social and relational because meaning is created between exchange through voice, listening, and response. Brunner helps us understand storytelling as a process through which people organize experience and construct meaning. And Freire allows us to see how learning becomes critical when personal narratives begin to reveal, that is the main point here, wider social conditions and open possibilities for dialogue and transformation. So we start the steps to talk about these steps. Building the group, it's something that we all believe and do, I think, in arts, and mainly to create a safe space. Before personal stories be shared, the group needs a ground. It needs trust, attention, rhythm, a shared space, a sense that one can try, fail, laugh, hesitate, speak, move, and be seen without being judged immediately. Some pictures here from that. I just say one reflection from students, from many. Through the games, we felt more comfortable, and the more collaborative atmosphere began to develop in the class. And many others, because we have reflected journals, I'll tell you about it. Objects The objects, it's an exercise we use and trigger the imagination, and we see how we work with this. I just try to describe because it's very important, because we bring very personal stories here. It's one powerful stage of the process. Each participant brings a personal object. The object first is given to another participant who is invited to imagine a story. Only afterwards does the object return to its owner, who shares its real story. The object functions as a mediator. It allows personal stories to be reached without immediate exposure. First, I speak through something. Then, I feel safe enough, I may speak about myself. The object also becomes a bridge to the other. It carries memory, but it also invites imagination. It encourages us to enter carefully and respectfully into a possible world that may belong to someone else. A student wrote, "When the time came to share the true stories, the atmosphere became serious and there was complete silence. Each story was unique and everyone really wanted to listen. And something else, I realized that every object is a treasure of memories." Here, storytelling is not only narration, it becomes an ethical practice of listening. I imagine, but then I step back and receive the story of the other. I begin to understand that my interpretation is never the whole story. That brings back to what I said before about Adichie, the danger of a single story. Although each story is unique, many of them evoke shared experiences. What initially appears deeply personal gradually begins to reveal common human concerns and shared social experiences. And one of the main processes, which I think it's the part that it helps a lot to make the composition in the end, is the life maps. One of the most important steps because through life maps, students begin to organize their memory more consciously. They choose significant moments, places, relationships, losses, achievements, questions, and especially turning points in their lives. They begin to see what has shaped them as persons. A life map, when kept private, is a personal document. But when shared with others, it becomes an invitation to listen. It creates a moment where personal memory enters the group space. Now storytelling becomes a way of meaning-making. It allows students to say, this happened, this mattered, this changed me, this is something I still carry. The activity helped us understand each other better and brought us closer because we shared personal stories. I felt that theater is a way to share your truth from our reflective journals. So personal narratives are not collected in order to be reproduced. They become the material of exploration now. From story, body and rhythm. Crucial, because the stories from the words move to the body. They become still images, gestures, movement patterns, looks, distances, rhythms, repetitions, silences, and spatial relationships. A phrase can become a posture. A memory can become an image. An emotion can become a rhythm. A social pressure can become a group formation. This is the point where stories becomes embodied storytelling. At this stage, specific theatrical techniques gradually become part of the group's expressive vocabulary. Through image theater, which we use a lot because we use a lot in theater in communities for people that they are expertise in theater. So through image theater, movement, vocal exploration, we play, we observe what emerges, we keep What has strength? We reshape it, we try again. One student wrote, it was as the first part focused on movement and expression of the body and face, and the second part on movement, emotion, and expression of the soul. This reflection is particularly important to me because it captures something central to the process. Movement is not only physical, it becomes a way of reaching emotion. Emotions that we started, I think, to talk about it in the beginning of this conference. Creating meaning and entering into relationship with others. Small parts, there is no sound here. Όχι αυτό, αυτό. Never mind, it's okay. It's just a gesture here of a student. They have a story and they try through the body to create what they feel, and all the other are coming on their own rhythm and shape to become a group together and show an explosion. That's all. But that's how it works in every group they create in the lesson. Yeah. Okay. From personal narrative to share themes. Again, I have to say that the point is not to present everyone his personal story. That's not the point. It's to make a collective action and see what we can say. Maybe we change a little bit our stories. We put the theatrical parts, the artistic parts inside. So let's see how it works. Across many individual narratives, the group begins to notice what is needed to be heard. The fear of exposure, family expectations, self-determination, responsibility, gender, stereotypes, vulnerability. It's all themes that 10 years now that we do the course are coming and coming again and again. Acceptance, social pressure, and the desire to speak and be recognized. The question is no longer only what is my story, but what do we want to say together? At this point, a story about a family can become a question about expectations and autonomy. A story about silence can become a question about voice. A story about vulnerability can become a question about care, about social themes, that they combine them with the stories they have. And a question about care, power, or social judgment. In this sense, the process does not simply use personal stories. Participants can recognize how personal experiences are connected to wider social relations and cultural meanings. One student wrote, maybe we become better people when we realize that everyone carries their own story and that it could also be ours. That is where the process becomes not only expressive, but also educational and socially aware. The story becomes a doorway to empathy, complexity, and critical reflection. We can get a brief insight into the sharing process that reminds us the co-learning cycle, concrete doing, reflecting, learning, applying, and we start from the beginning, from this little part of video that I will show you now, how they work. I choose the videos to be only 1 minute, 2 minutes, not all the process. The video is made from a student of Erasmus. It's French and Greek here, but you can see how they were working in this.
Nous sommes le continent noir, le fond, nos femmes esclaves, épris sont nos entraves. Debout,
Never mind, we can see.
asservis, humiliés, les femmes achetées, vendues, violées, dans
So we see the process. We learn, we try, gestures, images, we try again, we write down what we want to say in the end. So we make the aims, super objectives, if we go to Stanislavski now, as scenic objectives, and we create bit by bit the story. And we have a theatrical composition in the end. We are big groups, but of course we cannot create all these personal stories in big groups, so we make smaller groups from 5, 6 persons, students. And the final composition is woven from fragments. A phrase from one student, a gesture from another, an object, a still image, a shared fear, a silence, a repeated movement, a collective question, or a poem, if you choose to use something else and bring it to your story. Some little, this is a small performance that we created this year, and we present it in a festival that we do for arts in our school. The last 2 years we do it, and we are happy to have this opportunity to show our work. But I saw only a little part of it. I will show you. Here is a poem.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλό σας απόγευμα. Ακολουθεί η πρόκληση του κέντρου.
Μη πες κάτι, οτιδήποτε. Μόνο μη στέκεις έτσι, σαν να τσάλινε ουσία.
Διάλεξε, έστω μία λέξη, που να σε δένει πιο κοντά με την αοριστή. Μίλα. Έχουμε τόση θάλασσα μπροστά μας. Εκεί που τελειώνουμε εμείς, αρχίζει η θάλασσα. Μίλα. Οι λέξεις έχουν έχθες μεταξύ τους, απέκτες. Αν μία σε εγκλωβίσει, η άλλη σε ελευθερώνει. Μίλα. Πες αστέρι που σβήνει. Δεν λιγοστεύει σε ρημπή, δεν είναι μόνο μία λέξη. Όχι. 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 Όχι.
No.
Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ. Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ θα κάνεις. Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ. Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ θα κάνεις. Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ. Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ. Ό,τι σου λέω εγώ. Τι άλλο. Με λένε Μαρία. Και όλα άρχισαν όταν...
This is it. Again, about pressure, stereotypes from the environment. You have to stay to keep your job here in the village. You have to get married. You have to do what we have to do in the community. And suddenly she said, no, just no. I will do something else. And in the end, they go in front of the audience to see them, to see if they got the meaning, if they understand what should they do in the end. Because this transformation that they do in their stories also has to do with how the audience will receive it, and if they can give a message of, yes, I say no, and I do my own thing now. As you see later, we have a lot of themes that concern women. We are a pre-primary department, and we mainly have women, so this emerges a lot in our themes, and it's what it should be done anyway. Before the reflections, I will say that we saw something, but I want to say that the individual voices do not disappear from the students. They are held within a collective form. Sometimes one voice speaks, sometimes many voices speak together, sometimes the body speaks before words, sometimes silence carries meaning. So the performance, now we see it's not an artistic expression only, but as the visible trace of a pedagogical process. From hesitation we go to trust, from personal memory to collective composition, from private experience to public theatrical expression. Reflections. Reflection was present throughout the process, and we had reflective journals from the beginning of the process. That was given a place where we could reflect and see what we can continue and how it works. And all these years that we do this job, we have the same questions, the same words, and the same things happen. Trust, listening, what we achieve, collaboration, hesitation, respect, growth, some of them I mentioned here. Through the journals, the point is that they ask, what happened to me? What happened to the group? What did I discover about myself? What I begin to understand about others? What interested me is that the students reflected thoroughly on the whole process itself. So all these words and many others were coming again and again in their reflections. One student wrote, I expressed my feelings freely without feeling that I would be judged. In general, when we start the lesson, there is a big fear of expression. And it's a lot of the first 1, 2, 3 times with the body, the movement, the exercises, the games, we have to break it, and it breaks in the end. And we have a lot of exercises, as I said, about active listening and about communication. So it started to become a coherent group, which is very important to start the sharing. Also, when we share, it's always, we say, we share as far as we can go, in respect to one to the other, and it happens in the end. I'm beginning to discover of myself that I did not know, I begin to discover aspects of myself that I didn't know I had, which comes again and again. These reflections suggest that the process shaped how students perceive themselves, one another, and the world around them. They begin to recognize previously unnoticed aspects of themselves, to encounter their classmates as people carrying memories, struggles, and desires, and to understand how personal narratives can open onto wider social realities. And we're going to a closing with a video. Some of the narratives are therefore especially intense, as one that we see now. Only the end.
Κάνα τόσο καιρό γιατί δεν έλεγες τίποτα. Ο βιαστής μας είναι ο αδερφός σου, ο φίλος σου, ο κολλητός σου.
Ο σύντροφός σου, ερωτάς σου. Ο πατέρας σου, ο θείος σου.
Ο δασκαλός σου, ο συμμαθητής σου.
Ο συνεργάτης σου, το αυθεντικό σου.
Γι' αυτό λοιπόν εσύ θα σήκωνες το δάχτυλό σου να τον δείξεις για μένα ή θα έβαζες τα χέρια σου στις τσέπες.
Για μένα λοιπόν ένοχος είσαι κι εσύ, που δεν είδες.
Εσύ που δεν άκουσες.
Εσύ που δικαιολογείς. Εσύ που δεν είσαι έτοιμος να δεχτείς.
It was a difficult theme, and that year we had a lot of difficult themes, and every year about the women's abuse. So the question is, would you show who was the guilty one? Would you talk about it? Or you would put your hands in your pockets, which is an expression that you don't do anything, but just ignore the theme. But what I have to say about it, to finish, is that a similar process is taking place in other courses where students work with dramatic texts. Whether the story is personal or already written, our task is never simply to reproduce it. We enter it, interpret it, question it, and bring our own perspective to it through collective creation. Perhaps this is why, even when the process touches difficult memories, sensitive questions or social tensions, it rarely ends in heaviness. We saw how we ended in the performance, and it's always like that. It's an enthusiasm of we said it, we gave the message, something like this. The reactions we saw in the video have been occurring repeatedly throughout all the years this course has been in place. It often leads instead to connection, relief, joy, and hope, because theater allows us not only to face experience, but also to transform it. I would say arts can do that, maybe with different language at some point, but they can do it. And perhaps this is the fabric we have been weaving all along. Not simply a performance, shall I change it, but a community of people who have learned to listen, to imagine, to question, and to create together. A community, it's not that one, sorry. A community that begins to understand not only who we are, but who we might become together. And that was the purpose of all this work and course that we do. Thank you very much. This was it. Thank you.
We'll ask you for any questions.
If you want.
So there might be, thank you so much for these thoughts, and I would say also provocations, things to think about, important things to think about. And perhaps there are some questions or comments. We have a microphone.
Sorry if it was not a happy end, but it is in the end. It is when you talk about things that matters, I think.
So I do have a question, because I think many of us are working with very small children or young children. So the possibilities of reflecting or telling one's own story is perhaps very different to if I'm working with adults. Would you say something about that?
Yes. This work I wouldn't do with very small children. We can do with adolescents. We have done it with adolescents. I have done it. The other matters come, like bullying and things, and we find a way to smooth it. With adults, through this I learned that. I did it many times with, in Anglo-Saxon community, is very much this way of working in a participatory, of course, community theater, and it works perfectly. We can talk for many things, but with small kids, I would choose objects, something more light to talk about things that I care. Or just drawing what I like, what I don't like, and talk about it. It's a different process, I think, a different approach a little bit. But this is educators, and I wanted to do that with educators.
Yes, of course. So the capacity of very young children is very, very different. So I think that using objects, I think, it can be very, very useful. Okay, yes, we have a question here.
Actually, it's a comment. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I have experienced, even with young children, the same thing, that the arts can heal. And they can heal us, even with our children in the music making and the theater and the story making. That happens together. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say thank you, because that's what your talk was about.
Yes,
healing.
it was. Thank you.
So any other connections, remarks, questions? Yeah. Yes, we have another one.
Thank you very much.
I thank you.
Really very interesting. To what extent do you think the educators should have a sort of psychotherapeutic background?
No.
Or no?
Never.
Because it can go deep.
It can. We don't let it go very, very deep.
Okay.
That's why we have a way to, with theatrical expression and through role, and something we say many times is we change the story and never somebody play his own story.
It's a sort
It's
of
a group story then.
catharsis, I don't know how you, catharsis.
Catharsis. Yeah,
catharsis
it's a way of catharsis.
Yeah.
It's a way.
The group is representing the story of an individual or...
Never of an individual. It becomes a synthesis of ideas. The matter that I feel oppressed from my home maybe began, I don't feel that I can express myself. I cannot, somebody cannot let me speak. In the little composition we saw, the poem we heard, it was speak. And the poem, speak. So it becomes something out of you. That's why I said the role and the theater. Theater is therapeutic in a way, but we don't do therapy and we are very careful on that.
Yeah.
I have done some studies on that, but I try never to bring it to the classroom.
And that's why you were saying from personal narratives to collective drama.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes,
Now,
yes.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Another one.
So, thank you. Yes.
First of all, thank you. This is the most important thing, task for us teachers to help younger people develop their personalities, which is what you are doing, and it's very difficult. And I saw all the positive effects. I would like to ask you if you had any negative experiences, like during the life map or exploration or sharing of objects, that someone breaks down or feels bad, goes out, cannot handle it?
90% no. Sometimes there must be very strong emotions. If there are, things very, very important, and we stop it or we talk together apart. And the only sometimes can happen thing is the coherence of the group is very important. We try to do this job very carefully to have a very coherent group. And then when we have groups and share, in little groups we share, not all together. So that helps. It becomes a very more personal exchange in a small group. Sometimes we have what we have in a group. We have people that are more dominant, they have more strong opinions. But I think when that happened once, I have a very nice reflection that this time was difficult because somebody had more, power to say what we want to do. But I learned a lot from this process, and I know what I would do the next time. So it was another learning process. It becomes like mature working with others, what you have to do and what you can do. Yeah.
Thank you. And why are there so no boys, or one or two boys only? Or one or two boys only? Why?
Because we are pre-primary education department. But I have done this work with boys. They didn't, we have some, yes, I have done it. And very nice themes are coming, of family things mainly. Thank you. I thought nobody wants to hear about theater here, but...
No, one word you didn't use is identity. So this is about transformative experiences and identity construction.
I think I said once this word.
Okay.
And I noticed that I didn't say enough.
Yeah, because this is really about identity.
It's about me and the other, all this thing.
Yeah, and what is the transfer to the educational work? Because these are people who will teach in the end. So this is part of the work you do with them, on them, for them.
On them and for them, yeah.
And how do you see this kind of work is reflected then in their pedagogical activity?
Yeah,
so
I asked
why
them.
will they become better teachers due to this kind of work?
Because a teacher has to have concern about the world we live in, and I think, and to open dialogue with his students. And I think that helps a lot. And I have a reflection in the end, and always I put this question. Do you think that this process will help you? And always I say, yes, first of all, I can use some activities. Secondly, I felt that I expressed myself and I feel better to do this job. Second, I have these answers. So yeah, that was the idea, that you, as educator, it's not about only teaching, about who you are and what you want to do with your students.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, that's
Because
the point.
we have other lessons that we do performances with elves and with princesses. Again, though, we change them, but we have that.
So it's not a question of, how do you say, educational techniques, rather it's more about the person I'm becoming and then the educator I'm becoming.
I think it covers social theory, which is about the social interaction, how we are with others, and how me and other connect, and what the other believe for me, make me to believe it. It has to do with this, so the identity thing, how we built it, and a lot with Freire, that we are equal when we work all together, and we have dialogue to express what we need. It's in education, this.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
So would anybody else? Olympia.
You know.
Yes, I know. I have no any questions, but I would like to share with you, talking like one person, because we have the same office, we work together. Yes. In our department, we invest in our students' personal development. We work a lot with critical thinking and reflection. And our investment is not on songs or skills like that. We do that, but first of all, we invest in the personal development and personal growth of our students, because we strongly believe that if they are how can we say? Citizens, and they have a political kind of thinking and a state of mind, their own way of thinking, they can develop their own way of teaching. This is the policy of this department.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you. And I have to say, sorry, that is very helpful, that we are in an environment that welcomes us to do this kind of job. Yeah, Mr. Tsafos, that was in the beginning and supports this work and reflection and critical thinking.
So I also want to say something. It's really very impressing. It was impressing, and you get many ideas. I think of the first day we heard the first keynote, and we had the task to tell probably a story. It's all about storytelling and at the same time reflecting ourselves. So whether you do it on like you described it now, and I used to teach pedagogical psychology. And this is, okay, and I wanted to tell the students something about learning processes. And the first I asked them, what's about your learning history? How did you learn? What do you remember? How did you learn something? And why, probably? Can you describe that? And we had so many stories from different cultures. I remember one student from Russia, and she told us, and we all were really sitting there in such a hall, and we were starting to cry, And there were so many emotions. And suddenly, when I then brought the theories of learning, they know, this is why I had this feeling years ago. This is why I understood this better, or this teacher better than that one. So this all has to do with reflections, because you ask what's the connection to the educational process. So this is what came up when I heard.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we still have a few minutes. Anybody else would like to share something or ask a question? Okay, well, we say thank you very much for this thought-provoking presentation. Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. And at 4:30, along in the book exhibition, those of you who brought books can go along there. You get a number and you take home a different book. If you didn't bring a book, you can't get a book. So only those who brought a book can go there, and we'll see everybody back here at 5 o'clock for our closing. Okay, thank you.